and we're recording study group number 11. This group discussion is relating to um, scenario based for commercial kind of privileges and limitations. We'll be talking about 121 is commercial airlines, we know that, but we're going to be basically talking about part 91 and 125, and then part 135 and or yeah 91 and 135, 119 and 135, and then the private carriage sector of 125 through 1 and 135. There's other things in here, 136 relating to the Grand Canyon and National Park tours. There's part 61, of course, which if you're flying a private aircraft, there's still private pilot limitations that fall within these categories. But I have a few scenarios here that were kind of created by CFI that I work with named Malika in North Carolina. She's awesome, and she's got a real sound understanding of privileges and limitations. So she created a few scenarios for me, and I'm going to go through these. I'll just do a quick recap of what we're doing. This is a helicopter pilot study group where we meet weekly, talk about tasks from the ACS, any ACS, or just helicopter information in general. We discuss it, and then or somebody presents, and then we discuss it, and then somebody else presents, and then we discuss it, etc. These are all recorded, so you can go back and go through. All right, so getting to it. This excuse me, I have this dry cough that will not go away. This one is this scenario number one is a helicopter company advertises 30 nautical mile helicopter rides through the Grand Canyon. We don't, and their advertisement says, we don't sell tours, we just lease the helicopter to customers, and they hire our pilots separately. So kind of a cool concept, right? That theoretically, we have a helicopter company here that owns the helicopter, owns the operation, hiring, has a pilot to fly tours around the Grand Canyon. And there's a number of indicators here that immediately throw red flags and things that we need to consider. So would this fall under what part would this fall under? And this would fall under part 135, which is there's limitations on contracts, and this is a common carriage scenario. So this would fall under 135, and if we look at that here, transportation of passengers from different locations, 135 falls into that category. And it's doing commercial work. So with that kind of falling under the 135 category, and this makes me realize right here that I need to really spell out what 135 kind of entails, which is a massive section. One thing to note, 135 has 25 different, parts, or I guess 135 through 135.1 through 135 point. God, I don't know. It just keeps going. I mean, there's a massive amount relating to 135. Now, I should point out that before we get too deep into this, 135 is on the app, limitations relating to that, but it's not in the book. In the book, it shows that part 135 is not available in the book. It's only available in the app. So if you're going off the book solely, which is kind of antiquated, I'm finding, even though I reference this regularly, it doesn't provide all of the information that you need. So if you're in a 135 carrier, or if the company you work for has a 135 certificate, you're going to have to dig deep into that on the app or some other format. The book's not going to provide it. So anyway, because it's common carriage and it falls under that category, this would fall under the 135 operation. So one thing to mention is there's wet leasing and dry leasing. Dry leasing is an aircraft that's leased with no crew. So somebody can hire that airplane and go fly it, but there's no crew with it. So you could, if you had a jet and you had a buddy who was a pilot, you could theoretically, your buddy who's a pilot could take that jet and go fly it as long as they were type rated for it. But if they were giving you money or doing it for compensation, or if there was any other common carriage going on there, then that would fall into another category that could be. So that's a really gray area. A wet lease is an aircraft that is its entire operational support system is leased with the aircraft. So the FAA calls it the aircraft crew maintenance and insurance. All those things come with it. So this particular scenario falls under what's called a sham dry lease, meaning it's a wet lease in disguise. So they're providing an aircraft with at least one crew member, so that would be a wet lease, to a potential passenger who's the person hiring it to go take the tour. So you have two independent, basically, contracts here. So this can't be unbundled. And the helicopter and the pilot would be, or the helicopter would be one contract, and the pilot would be considered a separate contract. So that's the first concern, or that's the second concern there. Do they have a 135 certificate? Are they 135 capable? And then are they doing a wet lease or a dry lease? And in this case, it's a sham dry, so this would be concerning. Third issue that is noticeable here is that is there any holding out going on? Meaning, are you advertising the product as a commercial operator? Oh, wait, holding out. Let me just pull up the definition of that. This dry cough, man, is killing me. Holding out means you're willing to provide transportation services. You can hold out your. You can't advertise or verbally promote flying services for money. However, you can say, my name's John LeDrew. I'm a commercial helicopter pilot looking for opportunities. That is advertising, but that's not saying, hey, my name's John LeDrew. I have a helicopter, and I'd like to fly people around for money. Hit me up. That would be considered holding out. And that's what this kind of falls under, that category. They're offering commercial operator services, and commercial operation services fall under 119. So there's exceptions in 119, of course, as we know, and I think it's worth mentioning those. If you're banner towing, instruction, tours, carriage of political candidates, there's some stipulations for the helicopter flights, but doing external loads, nonstop tours within 25 nautical miles, this is 30. Doing parachute operations, power and pipeline monitoring, firefighting, aerial photography, construction, emergency mail scene, spraying, bird chasing, etc. So if it was doing any of those things, and it would, under 119, it would be exempt, but that's not the case here. So this is a commercial operation, which would fall under 119, which is where 135 lives. So, and then the next thing is, which is a quick immediate red flag, is this would fall under 136, which is the national park rules. There's specific rules relating to the national parks, specifically the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon has its own SFAR, special 50-2 with special flight rules around the Grand Canyon, which you have to have a permit for. So this scenario would be illegal from start to finish. There's really nothing about this scenario that is legal. But I think just by talking through this after writing it and realizing some of the things that I need to update, or really clarifying a little bit more of how 135 works, and 119, really where this falls into that category. Any questions on this scenario? I'm going to do one more, and then I'll let you jump into yours.
Yeah. This is fantastic. Just because it highlights a lot of the nuances of those federal regulations there. Again, the small stipulation between 30 and 25, and then that sham dry lease. It's good, man. I dig it.
Yeah, that sham dry lease is kind of interesting. I knew about wet and dry, but I like the sham dry concept, right? So you're actually providing a crew because you're providing the helicopter. Sure, yeah, that's part of the offer, right? You rent the helicopter, cool. Um, but and then they hire our pilots separately. So that's
Mhm.
like a wet lease is it comes with crew. A dry lease is it's just the unit. In this case,
Yeah.
it's you're getting the unit and then you're trying to do a second contract for just the pilot. So a sham dry, which I thought was pretty cool too. Okay, so this one I like because this one stands out as a little bit different. This is I think a realistic scenario what you might find out there, and this is partly why I like it. So Mel put this one together, and I think this one's brilliant. So this is a construction company. They hire you to fly their employees, sorry, to a remote work site. The construction company owns the helicopter. They pay the pilot as the PIC, and they find the pilot from one of their posts on Instagram stating that you're a commercial pilot. And that's why they reached out. They were actually looking for one. They saw that you were a commercial pilot on your Instagram, and then they reached out to you. Is that legal? And what does it fall under? And the answer is this is a private carriage helicopter. This is a private carriage operation falling under Part 91. And that is the sweet spot. Falling under Part 91 is far less stringent than any of the other parts, right? So 121 the most, 125, 120, and 135 operations are far more stringent, have a lot more FAA regulations than something Part 121 or Part 91. It's more of a private scenario. And so because the company owns the helicopter, all they're doing is flying their employees and they're just paying for a pilot to do that. That's perfectly legal. So it's a corporate flight department operation. The company owns the aircraft and they're hiring the pilot for their own business purposes. They're
Mhm.
maintaining operational control. They're flying their employees with their helicopter. They need someone to do it. You don't have to work for
Mhm.
that company to be the pilot for them, which is fortunate. You can be an independent pilot and they can pay you for this service. So there's no holding out here, which every time you hear the word advertise, it sort of immediately makes you go, whoa, advertising, holding out. That's not the case here because you're only advertising your services as a pilot, not the use of an aircraft.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
commercial pilot is allowed to hold out their personal labor. But again, it would be illegal holding out if you offer yourself and your helicopter if you were the operator, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's
Okay.
where you get into some trouble. Or if you worked for somebody and you were offering those scenarios to take other people around. It's the common carriage scenario. Again, I'm not
Mhm.
really super confident in my knowledge on this stuff. I'm kind of talking through it, trying to help myself understand it further as we're going. Um, that's the whole point of this study group too, and then to kind of
Yeah.
relay these things afterwards. But if you're listening to this and you have any concept or comment comments, certainly tell me where I am right and wrong here. I feel like I'm pretty right on a lot of this, but um, this is probably my biggest weakness in everything I've learned so far.
Mhm.
So the FAA kind of judges a lot of this stuff, on what they call the three-legged stool test, pilot, pay, plane. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. Is there a pilot who's being paid, and what's the aircraft? Who's the owner operator of the aircraft, and how do all those three things intermesh, right? So since it's not my helicopter, I don't know why I showed its note there. That doesn't make anything.
Mhm.
This is oh, it's not. It's not.
Mhm.
Um, it's not a not note period. It's not a wet lease or an illegal charter. This is a private
Mhm.
operation. So this is not in the business of transportation. It builds. It's a construction company, and it's incidental to their business needs, and it takes around their employees. So I like this scenario because this is a perfectly legal and um, desirable. I mean, falls well within the category of a legal operation. And
Yeah.
it's enticing as a pilot to maybe find something like this too. So there you
Yep.
go. Any questions on the construction company scenario?
No, I dig it. So now if you're saying that as a contractor, that this wouldn't be an issue. Would there be any restrictions, like say if you worked directly with the company? I wouldn't think there would be. If you
No,
were,
the only
say,
no.
if it
If you
was
worked for the
Shell
company,
Amco or something like that.
right? If you worked for the company, it would also be fine. I think where it would be a gray area here is if you weren't taking employees, but you were taking their um, like potential prospects or their buyers or their clients and taking them from one location
Okay.
to another. That then
Yeah.
would fall under common carriage likely, and that would likely fall into um, a, a 125 scenario potentially, or a
Mhm.
because then are you giving them tours? Is there compensation? Are they is then by that I mean, and that compensation can be a gray area. So you take a customer with your team out to see the construction site or the site that you want to build on or the building that's, and maybe it's an investor, and you're like, oh yeah, well I'll fly you out there to check it out instead of you having to drive. Is that encouraging them to potentially invest or buy or spend money with your company? If that's the case,
Mhm.
then that would be for compensation. That would be considered compensation. So if there's money changing hands in any way, that could be considered
Mhm.
compensation. If you're doing something under the pretense of being compensated later, if you're flying somebody under the pretense of saying, "Hey, come with me, I'll fly you out to the," um, that could be considered. Now, if you were a, but yeah, so that's on that business side, and that's what I don't super understand um, the details there, but it's like
Mhm.
transporting persons or property for compensation or hire.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, then that would probably fall in that 125 area, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot to kind of figure out here. Um,
Yeah. Oh, and it's, I mean, how when Tio and I we sat down and went through a lot of this stuff. It was an interesting deep dive going
yeah.
into it, and I think that we've talked a little bit about it in previous sessions.
Mm-hmm.
But as a military aviator, it's something that we don't even give a second thought to. It's like, what's the mission for the day? We're picking up some stuff and we're dropping it off over there, and then we're gonna do a sling load
Yeah.
later, and then we're gonna
So
pull some
nice.
guys, like
Yeah.
pull some guys out of the field and bring them back home. It's a lot more fluid. So getting prepped for civilian jobs like this is
Yeah.
huge for any Army aviator that's listening right now, or anyone that's flown for the military. This is something that we need to get up to speed for when we prepare for civilian flying.
It's a different world, huh? You
Absolutely.
guys act with a lot of immunity. The FAA don't. Yeah. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
say the least. To say
Yeah.
the least.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. It's really awesome, actually. Okay, so there's mine. Those are
Mhm.
my scenarios. I'm gonna stop streaming. Um, yeah. You have your scenario. I have it here, but I didn't put it into a slide. Do you want me to just copy and paste
Yeah.
it into a deck real quick, or do you have it?
I can talk through it. I've got SkyVector pulled up, so I can kind of walk through the different areas that I was flying through at
Yeah.
that point in time, and just kind of keep it fluid. So
Cool.
let me
You do
pull
that.
that up
While you do
right
that, I
here.
will pull up the your description
Okay. Yeah.
and we'll put it on screen. I'll put it on my screen, and then you can show your screen. Oh, it
Hmm.
didn't like that. I couldn't
Okay. Cool.
copy and
So I
paste.
got my screen shared there. Y'all seeing SkyVector here?
Let's see. Yep, got it. All
Yep.
right,
Got it.
take it away.
All right. Cool. So, kind of what I covered in the Facebook post when we got started
Oh
on
wait,
talking about this.
I don't think we have it.
No? Oh, okay. Um, double check here. Stream is still- Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Off into infinity. All
Yeah.
right.
So
Is that better
do
there?
your pop out.
Yeah. Okay.
On the right
Okay.
over here. Try. Okay, try again.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, it wasn't coming up last time for some reason. But anyways, there we go. So,
Nice.
sky vector, what we got here? Okay. So, back when I was going through my pilot and command assessment, I want to say about 2021, something like that. I was flying out of Fort Bliss, stationed here in El Paso. So to give a general flight plan, it was to go from KBIF over to KCNM for Cavern City.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was the direct route. Looks like it might be fairly simple. However, there's a few peculiarities, idiosyncrasies to consider along this flight route, both out and back. So, the training area notwithstanding, because we had free reign to operate in and around the restricted areas there, the flight out was intended to be IFR. So, talking a little bit about IFR planning here, departing from Biggs and then flying out through the different corridors that we had here, the VFR, or sorry, the Victor Airways.
Mm-hmm.
You may, looking at the routing here, I think if I remember correctly, we planned for the Newman VOR getting up there because at the time we weren't GPS capable, even in a mic model. We still had to fly via terrestrial based navigation aids.
Mm.
So flying off of the Vortec here, go up to the Newman VOR, and then you would take that all the way out to Salt Flat by the Victor 94,
Mm.
and then you had the choice to either continue on the 94 or bump up to the Victor 102. Now, if you take a look at the IFR portion of this, you can see that that altitude gets up ridiculously high for a unpressured aircraft. So if we were flying to the east, um, that would mean that at the bare minimum, we would have to climb up to 1,100, or sorry, 11,000 feet to get from the Salt Flat up over to the Cavern City Vortex,
Mm.
Carlsbad Vortex, excuse me, to shoot an approach into Cavern City. Now, though that's the more direct route, if you took a little bit of a detour, you could do the Victor 1694 and take up to the Victor 560, and you would be able to stay at an altitude below 10,000 feet, um, which is critical to this in that above 10,000 feet, you are time limited in an unpressurized aircraft. We have 1 hour of flight time that we can stay above 10,000 before having to descend below it, and 30 minutes above 12,000 feet. So, depending on the altitude that the ATC might assign you, you'd be lucky to get away with just 11,000, though they could bump you up to 13 since you're traveling to the east. Now, all of this again was part of my pilot and command evaluation. So the first leg was IFR from Biggs Army Airfield out to Cavern City, and then doing an instrument approach into there, landing, coordinating for fuel, and then the VFR segment after that took us back into the restricted area. Now, all of this was ran in what we call a time on target, in that we need to be arriving at our landing zone at a very specific time. And that H hour, if you will, uh, dictates the entirety of the mission. So, this planning process with the IFR leg actually started with the VFR leg. I think it was somewhere up. And I would have to zoom in a little bit more here. but I think it was somewhere here within this portion of the restricted area in the R 5301 Alpha that was our target for doing our VFR cross country. Now there's some things to consider with all of this. So that one leg that took us up ridiculously high, looking at it here, coming off of the Salt Flat, going over into Cavern City. The reason for that was looking at the national park areas that are
Mm,
here, the Guadalupe Mountain and the Carlsbad Caverns.
mm,
So all of that raises the minimum altitude that you're allowed to fly over by 2,000 feet. So departing out of Carlsbad Caverns was even something to consider because we couldn't just make a straight line for where we were looking to fly over here. We had to take into consideration how they would be routing us out of there, making sure that we weren't flying over the national park, and and all of that. So this scenario in which I was tasked with flying from Biggs over to Carlsbad to pick up some simulated passengers, had to coordinate with the local airfield, make sure that there was going to be fuel available, make sure that they were going to be there when we arrived, closing out a flight plan outside of our local area because normally we fly into and out of the same airfield, and the tower and flight ops does that for us. So there's another thing that military aviators aren't um, as used to doing. Normally, we have someone else take care of the flight management portion as far as flight plans goes. We still have to submit them through flight ops and base ops, but as far as opening and closing them, we just make a quick call over the radio, and someone else takes care of that for
mm,
us. So, landing there, remembering to close out the flight plan within 30 minutes of landing, so
mm,
that way they wouldn't launch the fleet thinking that we were overdue. So coordinating for that, and then managing that time on target through the mountains. And I think it was somewhere, yeah, probably right around here, near this ranch in this vicinity, where my standardization pilot turned off my GPS on me,
mm,
and I had to fly based off of inertial nav and pilotage and dead reckoning.
mm,
Something that we as Army aviators talk about quite a bit is whether or not there's still value in knowing how to fly off of a paper map when GPS is so prevalent, as well as SATCOM and all of the planning and flight management tools that we have. And the general consensus is yes, absolutely. Like you still need to know how to fly without a GPS, even if it's not specifically with a paper map, because we have moving maps in the aircraft and we have a electronic flight bag that also has those maps on them. Being able to determine your position in time and space based off of um, landmarks and the routes that you planned is super critical. And
mm,
this is also something that we worry about when it comes to AI integrations. Is that route planning is such a critical portion of what we do that if in some ways if you're not tied in with every step of the way, every control point, every route point that you plan, and knowing exactly what that thing looks like, where where it is on the map, and how to identify whether you're to the left or to the right of it. I remember picking out some dried up pond on the map here that I thought looked like a cat, but my SP said looked like an upside down fish. Either way, in the middle of the desert, we were still able to pick out a discernible landmark. And with the GPS turned off, the inertial navigation system had us drifted. I want to say about half a kilometer to the left of the point when we were actually to the right of it. So knowing how to operate VFR by pilotage and dead reckoning without GPS, planning the routes a huge portion of that. And if we start to become reliant upon AI, we worry that people are going to lose that skill. So even with all of the advanced integrations that we have with planning software, and AI, it is still a skill that we look to hone, and that we make sure that all of our pilots in command can do by navigating off of the map, off of terrain, and off of terrain association. So this is barely half of the eval at this point in time, since we had flown out to Carlsbad Cavern here, and transitioned across roughly this space here. Not exactly a direct line, but somewhere in, again, this vicinity, getting up into the training area here. We turned off, flew in there, and got in amongst the mountains to drop off these packs that we picked up. Unfortunately, since it was very dark out and all of those ridge lines looked the same, I thought that I was right on course and that I was going to the right spot. And man, I second guessed myself
Mm.
because I picked the ridge line to the right when I should have gone to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And so we landed. We dropped off the guys, and as we were taking off again, my stands pilot was like, "So was that the right place that we were supposed to go to?" It's like, "No, no, it wasn't. I know exactly where it's at. It's over here." So I flew him over to where we should have landed. He's like, "Okay, that's what I thought."
Mm.
Like, "Oh, by the way, those guys are getting hit with indirect fire, and we need to go pick them up right now." So,
Oh shit.
as simulating a combat environment, since we train to be combat aviators, so as we were coming in, he's like, "Oh man, we need to call in for artillery fire to screen our location." So he gave me the location, and we're calling in like Willie Pete, White Phosphorus to give a smoke screen for us. We come in, we land at the wrong LZ, pick him up and take off, and he's looks over and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I got shot at like on climb out there. Oh, I'm not feeling too good. Oh, what are you gonna do?" It's like, okay. Well, lock your seat, your harness, your shoulder harness, and hey, crew chiefs, grab the med kit back there. Start rendering aid to him. Make sure he doesn't, make sure his shoulder harness is locked. He doesn't slump forward on the controls, and then calling for like immediate extraction of these things, and more another call for fire to go with that to cover our escape from this LZ up in the on a small mountaintop there, and then calling back to the tactical operations center to coordinate to have emergency rescue on scene and let them know the situation and how everything went sideways. It was man, I envy you guys in the civilian sector sometimes, because I don't think that you'd be put through the ringer like that on an evaluation for pilot in command. But it certainly was a an interesting experience, and one that stands out. Geez, even 5 years 5 years after the fact now.
Wow. Yeah, as if flying isn't hard enough.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And then you got to factor in being shot at, and he would be at your SIC, I suppose, right? Getting shot. It's
Mm-hmm.
intense.
Yeah, yeah,
I have a few questions. So,
yeah, absolutely.
when you um, when you pre-flighted this, and you were
Hmm.
given your two-way or your destination, you showed
Hmm.
us the IFR route following VORs along the way, which Victor Airway you would take.
Yeah.
Well, looking back at the sectional, I saw that there's some buttes or whatever that are 6,000 feet, 7,000
Mhm.
feet, right? So I it
Yeah.
made more sense why you were flying at such high altitude.
Hmm.
It ultimately, I'm not sure I caught this. Did you end up taking the Victor Airways through the VF or for the through the VORs, or did you just kind of essentially go direct to?
Hmm.
You did do that, and then on your way back is
So
when we went into
yeah.
the restricted area.
So we took the southern route.
Yeah.
Um, that route that we took instead, we were at 9,000, which meant that we weren't time limited on oxygen because the
Right.
whole point is to keep you from getting hypoxic.
Same in the
So yeah,
civilian
we
world.
ended up taking the southern route instead.
Yep, same in the civilian world. So when did you end up in the restricted area? Is that on your way back? You had to take, so you picked those people up and then you went
Yeah,
back. Got it. And so once
yeah.
you were there, would you ever do a direct two line, um,
Mhm.
and not necessarily follow the Victor Airway and just kind of scud run? I mean, not really, but say 500 feet AGL
Yeah.
and just fly it direct. I mean,
So
I know it's easier with
for
GPS, but
if if we're talking, so that leg, the intention was to fly at IFR,
yeah,
to check my abilities and stuff like that there.
right,
Man, for our risk mitigation procedures, it gets real sketchy, like when things get below 1,000 foot cloud clearances.
got it.
Like it elevates the risk level, and you have to talk to a higher risk approval authority, the next level up in command, so to
Right.
speak. So yeah, flying at like, I mean, at 500 feet, we would essentially have to have 1,000 foot ceilings to be able to do that.
Hmm.
Um, 700 is like the next lowest level that we would be
For
good to fly at, and that would
SVFR.
be like the battalion commander that would be approving that as
Got it.
opposed to the company commander.
What were the ceilings in this
So
scenario? Were they where this it was socked in the whole way? Pretty much was the concept.
no,
Oh,
no. So this was like it was a clear day
oh,
in El
okay.
Paso.
Yeah,
So it was just a training flight to get us out there, and there is some value in that. Like you don't have to worry about weather. So if you're looking at your forecast and you see that weather's going to be kind of sketchy earlier in the day, but you know that it's going to clear out, but you still might be able to fly that first leg under VFR. It's just easier to file IFR at that
yeah.
point in time and not have to worry about it. So kind of simulating that sort of environment.
So did you create a navlog, compensate for wind and variation? Um, did you plot this on a sectional? Um, did you do all that first? Because you had mentioned that did you use satellite references for your waypoints? Okay. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So the military has the aviation mission planning system,
Hmm.
which is very similar to like SkyVector, what we were looking at there.
Hmm.
It has higher, or I should say, higher resolution. Typically, we plan off of like a 1 to 50,000 map, but the scale can get lower than that, depending on what sort of imagery we have loaded into the computer. And it
Hmm.
can even go down to, I want to say, like a 5 meter satellite imagery.
Wow.
So between that, the joint operational graphics, which I think is like 1/250, um, then we have a 1/100 and 1/50. Between all of those maps for VFR flight planning, we'll utilize those to determine those air control points,
Hmm.
which is just a reference point, if
Yeah.
you will, kind of like what I was talking about earlier by identifying points in which you can navigate from using pilotage and dead reckoning.
Right.
That's exactly what those ACPs are for, either in a change of altitude, a change of speed, a
Hmm.
change of direction, or just to make sure that you're staying on track. We typically try to keep it like below 20 kilometers
Hmm.
that we plan these ACPs along our routes. So the IFR legs matters less. Those rules don't apply to there because
Hmm.
you're under radar control,
Hmm.
flying that, and you're flying on those. You're either hand railing those Victor Airways, you're flying GPS points.
Hmm.
Either way, you got a squawk that's assigned to you.
Hmm.
You are under ATC control. But when it's all on you and you're flying VFR, that's where those ACPs become really important,
Hmm.
especially if you end up in a GPS degraded or denied environment.
And so, how do you reference them? Do you actually write them down on like a paper navlog, or do you have another? Yeah, that's so you're just like
So
you called it like the Dead Cat Lake or something like that, right? You're like you just
yeah,
kind of write it
yeah.
out 10 minutes at this airspeed with this wind, this
Mhm.
compass heading to Dead Cat Lake. Then I
In
turn whatever
in
and
short,
yes, okay.
yes, in short. So we do have we call them TDH cards,
Hmm.
time distance heading cards. We've there is still a debate in the aviation community as to whether or not digital or paper is superior.
Right.
Um, as I said earlier, dead trees don't run out of battery,
Yeah.
so there is definitely something to be said for that. In that, if everything else in your aircraft fails, if your maps are corrupted, if your EFB runs out of battery, at the very least, you still have exactly as you described, time on and distance on this heading to Dead Cat Lake. Then you turn right to whatever heading it was from there and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So piloted in Jet Reckoning, I mean, like we have GPS that is loaded into the aircraft that has this route for us,
Mm-hmm.
but we still have a means to back ourselves up and make sure that the flight management system is accurate in the event that we do lose GPS.
I mean, that's a lot of work creating a nav log to that detail. I mean, it takes time to plot it out, right? And so I
Yeah,
imagine,
hours,
yes, right. And
days.
yeah, yeah. Especially if
Yeah.
it's far, and you're assuming. I mean, you got to kind of like double check and triple check to make sure things right. And then in flight,
Yeah.
obviously, you're monitoring it to make sure that things are right.
Yeah.
And there's the unforeseen, right? Like winds
Mhm.
change, right?
Yep.
You may
Yeah.
predict wind the day before your flight, and it's totally different the day you go.
Oh
So,
yeah, and especially in and around the mountains in
yeah,
El Paso,
right.
man, you can go from one valley to the next and experience a 180-degree wind change just
Yeah.
because of the mechanical turbulence. I've seen it happen out in Fort Irwin, California, at the National Training Center, and ended up doing a dust landing with the tailwind because of it, and that
Mm,
was not a fun experience.
I bet it was a little
Hmm.
nerve wracking. Are you worried about VRS in
Yeah.
those conditions?
VRS, what do you mean exactly?
Vortex ring state. You guys might call it settling with power.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Not so with it landing with the tailwind, yes, that's one of the things that can lead into it.
Mm-hmm.
We were light at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the winter out there, so density altitude wasn't too bad. That wasn't the biggest concern for us. The biggest thing was that it is moon dust out there in the
Yeah.
desert. Um, El Paso, there in the Chihuahuan Desert, the Mojave's actually worse. I hate the Mojave Desert in comparison,
Flying
and
in it.
I've been in at least six of them since I
Yeah.
got stationed at Fort Bliss. But yeah, it is such fine powder that it wasn't much of a tailwind that we had, but it was enough that as we were coming in for a landing, all of that dust was getting recirculated and staying with the
Mm,
aircraft
mm,
instead of getting blown behind it as if we had had a tailwind.
right.
So I actually, because the DVE, degraded visual environment.
Mm-hmm.
Because the visual environment was so degraded, I did not have a good reference with the ground, which, after you've done a number of dust landings, you kind of accept that you're not going to and trust your crew chiefs, which are like 3 feet behind you. They got a lot better view of the aircraft.
Mm,
Um, I didn't have good sight of the ground, my crew chiefs did. But because of that, I started developing a right drift,
mm,
and after my crew chief called it like 3 times, like drifting right, drifting right, drifting right, called the
mm-hmm.
go around, and just without thinking about it, we did a go around, came back around, landed in a different spot,
Mm-hmm.
got it on the ground just fine,
Mm,
got out of the aircraft and felt the wind on my face and thought to myself, son of a bitch, I know exactly what I just did.
mm,
So
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
always room to improve and, you know, turn little things like that into a learning opportunity.
Yeah,
But uh, but
absolutely.
but yeah, planning for wins is a huge thing that we do on missions like this, because you always want to be landing with a headwind, especially in a desert environment,
Yeah.
and when you're landing on a pinnacle. So if
Mm-hmm.
you guys end up landing on top of a hill, or if you do medevac and you're landing on top of a building, landing with a
Yeah.
headwind makes things so much easier for those elevated positions, way more than what it would on the ground. But yeah, and that affects your fuel burn as well.
Certainly.
So trying to get things dialed in like to the gnat's ass, not only on arriving at that landing zone plus or minus 30 seconds from when you said that you're going to, but also managing your fuel the entire route and knowing that, like, hey, my burn rate might change, but
Mm-hmm.
if at this point I've got above X amount of fuel, I know that I'm good and that I can get back
Mm-hmm.
to base. And I've had missions where, man, we were within like 50 pounds of being below the bingo fuel at that point in time. And every stop along the way, it was like, okay, next ACP, are we good? All right, we're still like 50 above. Okay, next
Mm-hmm.
one, maybe about like 55, 60. Okay, good. The conditions are getting a little bit favorable, but
Mm-hmm.
we were still landing with the fuel lights turned on. We can take like uh, 2,400 max, typically more like about 23. Um,
That's 400 pounds an
and
hour.
no, 400 pounds in the tank, left in the tank.
Oh,
We'll burn anywhere between, if we're good, like 800 to, if we're really pulling the guts out, like 12. So and
800 to
that's
12.
more like with having to do with weight and density, altitude, and all that.
Yeah, that's wild. That's like R22. It's like
Yeah,
burning.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
But
Just in
But
an
to
hour's worth of fuel burn.
yeah, yeah. But to relate this to some things
Yeah.
that you guys might do on the civilian side. Um, and this is a good experiment or experience for me as a military aviator, like trying to think like, okay, um, we do this crazy shit, all of this like nat's ass planning. What does that matter to you guys? um, if you're out there, if you're having to do like a long distance cross country, like Jay, I know you did one just recently, and I'm sure that monitoring your fuel burn rate was a huge part of that. But getting that performance planning done early, putting the variables in your stops, like if you had to deviate for weather to go to one place or another, it would be kind of like IFR planning and planning for an alternate, but knowing that if you were stuck flying in VFR conditions, like, do I have the fuel available to reroute to another airport that's nearby?
Mm-hmm.
Is that airport going to have fuel for my aircraft when I get there?
Yeah.
Do I need to have permission to land at that airport, or like, do I need to call them in advance to make sure that the fuel's going to be there, even if they do offer those services? Hey,
yeah.
but then that too, like if you end up doing VIP movements, um, people with busy schedules with a lot of money are the ones that contract for VIP
Mhm.
corporate flights like that. So they are definitely going to want to be to their destination. Call it plus or minus 30 seconds from when you
Yeah.
said that you were going to get them there.
That
So
seems impossible. It really does. I
which
mean, okay, we've
yeah.
got a fly, 2 hour flight here, and you got to be there within 30 seconds of when you anticipate being there. I mean,
Yeah.
what was the total distance? What was the total time in flight
Oh man.
to
It
that?
was
Well, to that, just
I
to
don't
one
remember specifically.
from airport to
Yeah,
airport.
but so I know it took a bag of gas to get there and back. I want to say it was probably about an hour and a half to get out to Cavern City, flying at the altitudes that we were at.
Yeah, wow.
Maybe just an hour. So not our total range, which is depending on conditions, roughly we'll call it 2.5 hours
Mm-hmm.
that we can fly with between needing gas. Um, but it was pushing the edge there, especially the VFR portion. I want to say ended up rounding out like probably close to about an hour and 50 minutes, something like that. I'd have to go and look at the
Yeah,
plan again, but
it's
I
a lot of
know
work.
it's well over 100 nautical miles just to get there straight line distance.
It's a lot of work.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, T, I know you were listening in. Is there anybody any comments? Anybody have anything, Jay, Tio, for Mike?
Um,
Thoughts,
not
questions?
as far as a scenario. I
Mhm.
do have a few announcements, but
Yeah.
let Tio go if he's got anything. You're muted, Tio.
Um, yeah, that was great to hear to go through all that scenario. Definitely
Yeah.
a different world. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, not much that I
Cool.
could think of other than, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys don't mind, I have one more scenario that I'd like to potentially run.
Yeah.
You guys into it?
Absolutely, man.
Why not,
Do
Let's do
right?
it.
it.
And yeah, we got Tio here too, and um, he's the limitations and privileges expert. So Maybe we can help us break this one down a little bit. So this is another scenario that I had planned for, and this is the VIP club. So the scenario is I created a company called the VIP club. All of my buddies pay a yearly fee and can schedule flights with me whenever they want. I'm the paid pilot and I'm the owner of the helicopter. Is this legal? So I know it's kind of vague, but when digging into it a little bit, this would be a commercial operation that falls under 119, and it would require an air carrier certificate. And the FAA breaks it down into the three-legged stool. They ask this question, right? The three-legged stool question is they're plane, pilot, and pay. And if all of those three things come into the scenario, then that would be considered a commercial operation. And with a commercial operation, you need to have a commercial operator certificate. So this would not fall under standard 119 exceptions. This would fall under 119 common carriage. So part of this is we're holding out a segment to the public, and the public being the buddies who I'm advertising to, and having them pay this yearly fee, and calling it the VIP club. That would be considered holding out and to this section of the public in particular, and that would then fall under common carriage of 119 and 135. So we are receiving compensation, which is part of the plane pilot pay section. This is operational control, and doing this for hire requires a Part 135. If this was my helicopter and I wasn't charging anybody, and we were going within 25 nautical miles of the same airport and back, then that would fall under Part 91. That would just be a private operation. And that would fall under those exceptions of Part 191 or 119. But this, again, if wet lease, dry lease, this would be a wet lease aircraft because the pilot requires which equals the pilot requires an operating search. So if my buddies own the plane and we all owned it together and we shared it, then that would be potentially Part 91 if we weren't getting paid. We were all paying the pro rata rates, which goes back to Part 61, then that would fall under, that would be fine. But since I'm charging them, they pay this yearly fee, they're paying me, the owner operator, and the pilot, then that's a common carriage scenario. So what I'd like to do with this one, because this one's pretty vague, there is a lot of potential in this one. Like we could talk about this scenario, what would make it legal, which I kind of had talked on, and then what, we know it's illegal, but what under 119 and 135 makes this illegal? And maybe, Tio, with some of your recent studies on private limitations and privileges, you can kind of analyze, assess this. If you have any thoughts on this, not to put you on the spot, but if you have any thoughts on this particular scenario, aside from what I noted that make it legal, maybe elaborate on that if you can, which I'd like to hear your opinion, and then, what is it that would make it legal potentially?
Yeah, so what I see, the first red flag is that he's the paid pilot and he owns the helicopter, and that comes with what you were talking about also with the wet leasing. Like you're gonna have the operational control, you're the pilot there and the helicopter. You're providing that to the general public, so all of that is very holding out that word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very commercial operation with the operational certificate. But yeah, to make that legal, I feel like you would be able to, you would be able to rent that helicopter to someone else. They would provide their own services. Let's see.
Their own pilot, and that would be a dry lease, right?
Yeah. And as a dry lease, they could do that under Part 91.
I think so. Dry lease falls under Part 91. Does anybody want to?
Then,
go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking back to the earlier scenario that you shared, John.
So yes, for this to be legal and not fall under the sham dry lease concept. So the way I the way I read this is that if we were all co-owners, I offer okay, here, join my helicopter owners club. We all own that. We all are part of the helicopter club.
Yeah.
But if they were all pilots, they could fly it.
Mhm.
But if they're paying to be in the club and I'm their pilot, that would make it a dry lease. Not a. It would essentially be a wet lease, but we would be calling it a dry lease because sham dry lease because the
Mm.
pilot is the owner, the operator, and then when you have personnel resources that go with the lease of the aircraft, then that would be considered a wet lease.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't thinking of that connection that that other pilot was having with the original guy. Yeah. Uh,
Right?
that would definitely
But
tickle
if
some hairs of the FAA, and
yeah,
if they would hear about that.
the only way I think this could be legal is if everybody was in the club was a pilot.
Yeah, like if they were, say, learning to fly or something like that, got their student pilot certificate, and the hours that they logged with you were towards them getting their own certificate.
Yeah, exactly. Now that would fall
Now
under
that sounds
part.
like a flight school.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
and now
right.
that would
Part of flight school.
that would fall.
With extra steps.
Yep, exactly. That would fall under
Yeah.
the 119 exemptions section. And those,
Here's a good one, John. So you just reminded me of something. Somebody called me the other day, and they wanted, so there's a little airport in middle of Florida. It's called Sebring,
mm-hmm,
and they wanted to do some tours out of there. And they said, "Well, what's that gonna take?" And I was like, "Well, it probably is gonna require somebody to have at least a 91 carrier, to operate tours, to have a letter of agreement at
mm-hmm,
least."
mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Well, yeah, there was a guy out here with a 66, and we're not making anything off of it. He was just taking people on tours." And I was
Damn.
like, "Well, you are liable, sir. Like, if you, it doesn't matter if he's just taking people, like, and do, if it's not on the up and up, and you're representing the airport, something happens, they could come after you because you organized that event. So I suggest you go through a reputable tour operator," and I gave him a few numbers to kind of base it off of. But I couldn't believe that,
Man, that really highlights the importance of knowing this stuff, man.
Yeah.
That's just how easily you could get yourself in trouble thinking that, like, oh yeah, we're just giving tours. What's
Yeah.
the problem with that? And
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, so say I have a 66, and I'm getting, I don't know, let me throw an arbitrary number. I'm charging $75 per seat.
yeah,
And I have a pretty good day. I don't know, let's say we had like 30 people come through.
Yeah.
And do the quick math, whatever. Oh yeah, I made some money, probably paid enough for my fuel. But when the FAA catches wind of it, how much is that little money that you make gonna cost you?
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the point of
Mhm.
why you want to follow the rules, because same thing, they're going after the drones just the same.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, guys, like, protect your certificates, like,
Yeah.
this is important. But if you can't justify it,
Mhm.
just claiming ignorance isn't going to cut it. They're
So
so
let's
but
look
yeah.
at this here. Let's look at this. So under 119.1 subpart E, this doesn't apply to the exceptions when common carriage is involved. Pilots are granted, right? So if under you can it means you can operate a helicopter operation under 119, and the exceptions are you don't need a part 135, or you don't need a part 125. Obviously, it's not a 121, but you can have a school, so student instruction, non-stop commercial air tours, 30 seats or fewer, max payload of 7,500 pounds. This is not a 66, obviously, right? Begin it and end at the same airport within 25 statute miles. So the only thing is, If you wanted to do this above any of that, you would need a 91-147. That would be a letter of authorization and a drug and alcohol testing certificate, right? So everybody would need to get tested. But for under these conditions, as long as they were doing it under 25 statute miles, that would be legal. Am I right? Or am I missing something?
You still need the LOA though.
Yeah, most of them will have the LOA. If you're doing tours, you'll have LOA and you'll have the drug testing.
That's just how it is. Yeah. So even flight schools that offer tours have the LOA from the FSDO.
Should, yeah.
Yeah,
they should.
Got it. Okay, well that makes sense. So if you didn't have that, if you didn't have the LOA or the if you didn't have that, then you would not be able to do it?
You'd be limited to just running flight instruction, so you can run flight instruction without an LOA or a drug testing program or any of that stuff. And instead, so now you're doing, instead of tours, now they're discovery flights. But
got it.
The FAA also knows about that.
Right.
So if you're doing flight train, discovery flights and the guise of flight training, they know every little trick they know about.
Yeah, totally.
So
of course, there's no sneaking by the FAA. So if you're gonna do these tours, you have to have that LOA. Right.
Yeah,
and
LOA,
most operations, flight schools that end up doing tours, they drug test their CFIs anyway.
They should.
They should. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Well, that helps clear things up a little. That's cool.
And that also, the non-stop commercial air tour also is notifying that it wouldn't work if you're going through the Grand Canyon and national parks, right? Because that's the 136.
Yeah.
So you can do it
right. So we kind of touched on that a little bit. 130. 136 regulations for commercial air tours around national parks, and then the SFAR 50-2 for the Grand Canyon in particular. Right. So what's 120? What's 125? We know 125.
Sound that like a cargo one?
Yeah, 125 was for more than 20 passengers, I think more than 6,000 pounds. You can have that on private carriage or on commercial, common carriage, not commercial.
That's 125?
Private carriage.
Yeah.
You can both have 125, and then if you have less than that, it's 135. And that's why helicopters were mostly going to be, almost always going to be on 135.
Right.
If you are under common carriage, which is with the holding out, that 135 is going to be more towards stringent than a private carriage 135.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 125 is
like the amount of people.
It's higher weight limit and more passengers. So it's a type rating, basically.
Yeah. You're going to see it more in airplanes. Airplanes are going to do that more. Okay. Like a little cargo company that they can take some passengers and some cargo.
Got it.
That's a good point, too, about the 135.
Yeah. And that's why helicopters fall into the 135 primarily. Right?
Yeah. 135 or some programs run 91. If they're state funded, they run in 91, which, if you can get in a program like that, it depends. Depends on the safety. If they're a safe program that can run on 91, by all means, but really the number one should be the safety. So.
Yeah, I think 91's ideal,
What was the cargo, the weight limit on that?
For 120.
You said 6,000?
I think it was 6,000. There was a difference.
Is it 7,500?
1 or 6,000. 1 or 7,500. I'm not sure if 125 was the 6,000, but then there was another limitation that spoke of.
I'm gonna ask AI right now. Difference in 125 and 135.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid.
I'm just thinking of like if someone were to fly Blackhawks, Sikorsky S-70s, commercially or civilian side, like trying to think of where um, firefighting operations would fall into to all of that, because I know that like the Blackhawk and definitely the Chinook are capable of hauling more.
Auto, the DFPC aircraft is still considered under 91, and that's the Firehawk that's under Part 91. So they can't carry crew or anything like that because they
Okay.
yeah. Well, they can carry their flight crew, but they can't carry like firefighters that are they're going to
Really?
drop
So
off. Yeah, they'd have to fall under that different category.
interesting.
Okay.
Now, would is that with the same aircraft, like aircraft, or sorry, Black S-70s specifically configured for the Firehawk mission, or are they able to use different aircraft in their fleet to be able to do that?
That was specifically that helicopter. They do have a 206 or no, a 205 or a 204. I think that is their fire attack helicopter. And so, but that one doesn't require a type rating. And what's the type rating limit? Is it 12,500?
Yeah, 12,000.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that would still fall under firefighting. So those operations are not restricted to
exempt.
that because you're under 119.1E.
Yeah.
And I read that 7,500 is on like the non-beautiful book. Hated in the beginning. Now I'm like, I don't know if I love you, but you're sometimes useful.
That's a good book, I'm telling you. And when you become an instructor, it's a great book.
I cut mine in half. I took the aim out of it. It's nice.
So yeah, the non-stop commercial air tours, that's where it says 30 seats of fuel or 7,500 pounds or less. And then 125 is the 20 passengers and the 6,000.
Got it. Well, you found it where you should. I found it cheating. And here's what AI here's what AI said. So exactly right. 21 or part 25, 125, 20 seats or 6,000 pounds, like you said. Part 135 is 30 seats or 7,500 pounds. So there's and all helicopters? What the hell does that mean? Is
that's probably that's probably the AI messing up?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Allowed, can operate charters, demand. This is, I didn't ask specifically for helicopters in this, but corporate shuttles, private groups, large private jets, Boeing business jets, air taxis, private chargers, regional commuter airlines, and helicopter tours fall under 135. Oh, I think that does make sense. Private contracts with specific clients only can be booked by individual or groups on demand. So, any thoughts on that?
You checked out Glide AI.
Light.
Both Lima, India, Glide AI.
Which is
Golf,
that?
Lima, India, D.
Delta Echo. Yeah. AI. That one it's an AI that's only uses information from, you need to create what's it called, like an account, but then it uses only information from the FAA approved books.
Oh, okay.
Can I share my screen for 10 seconds?
Yes. Let me stop.
Alright. Here. Okay, so here I have it.
Okay.
Can you see it?
1 second.
So
There we go.
Oh, that's fine.
You can ask your questions and it tells you where the references are from. So Glide AI, once you do a free thing, I'm not paying for it, but you can ask for it. So I was also asking, so for example, I'm going to do a ferry flight, right? Someone asked me to take this helicopter from one place to the other, but in my scenario, a friend wanted to come with me, but can I carry that person with, as a ferry flight as well? And I get paid for it. That was kind of what I was asking here. You have the exception of the ferry flight that is under 119.1, But the fact is still that if you're carrying also a passenger, you have dual purpose. Non-essential personnel, you cannot get paid for that if you're also carrying a passenger. But yeah, there's like a lot of
Wow.
good information here, and you can click on things, and it'll take you.
Wow.
Take that out. Advisory circular. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
cool stuff here.
That is the solution, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is critical there. Like AI being able to give you the references, man. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what we were talking about earlier, John. Like being able
Yeah.
to verify this stuff after it gives you information.
That's a good one. Thanks, Tia.
Yeah,
Appreciate
show
that.
us that.
And-
Restream again if you can, Tio. Show us
yeah,
that. The homepage.
Glide
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see it. Google searching.
Glide.
Glide AI. I think it's that page where you are at. Where you can.
Oh, it was on that. That was Glider AI. Ask Glide.
Glide AI.
That's Glide.
Let me see. Glide apps? No. Glide AA.
You can
Pilot
download
grade
it
design.
and-
Yeah, it is. Here we go. I got it. I found it. Let me show you guys.
Okay. Yeah.
There it is.
Okay. Huh.
GlideAI.io.
Pilot grade AI. Oh, that's good. Thanks. Appreciate that. All right.
All right.
Hey, so I have an instructional flight that I got to do tomorrow, so I
Yeah.
got to log off before I do. I wanted to make a few announcements since we're all
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
So we have, I know John knows about this, but I think we got Richard Mornington Sanford. He's going to do the presentation on carburetors on May 23rd. It's going to be an FAA safety presentation. We're going to try to run it through Microsoft Teams. I'm already making a little registry box. That way I can get people's emails and give them credit for that. So I'm gonna try to talk him into doing a run through, but the time is 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. So I don't know what you guys are, but 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. He's gonna be in Malaysia, so he's gonna be like 12 hours ahead on Monday morning. But that's what we're gonna go with May 23rd. What else? I guess I wanted to maybe discuss the few crashes that we had. They had crashed down in Palm Beach 478 Alpha Tango. Went down. No real. I mean, he made a distress call, but landed on a warehouse, and then these people went down in Hawaii. Not, I think yesterday, or was that? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
Are you
I haven't
guys?
heard.
So I should typically follow the crashes through Aviation Safety Network, or there's this guy, Aircraft Investigation, Ian Hunter, I think, on their Facebook, or Aviation 24/7 yesterday, and three killed,
right.
2 hurt.
Yes.
So yeah, I try to keep
did
track
hear
of
that
those.
It's tragic.
But
Did you hear about the near miss that happened the other day out in
Yeah.
what was that? John Wayne, Orange County
Yeah.
Airport?
I was just there.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Wow.
so I have an update on that. The guys in my
Oh.
VLC group
Mhm.
talked about it. Do you guys want to hear about this one in particular?
Yeah,
I
I got a
absolutely.
quick recap
I
for
read
you.
a news article about it today. I'd love to get more information on it.
So here's part of the info. Okay, so the military. No, he said okay. So he went over the data last night and he found that the Black Hawk was at 583 feet below the United flight and 0.1 of a mile horizontal of separation at crossing. This is not ideal, but still very much on a different plane of travel. CBS over dramatized the scenario, and the controller obviously didn't like it. And was it a runway incursion? Yes, but what degree of runway incursion was it? Would you? And I think that's the question here. Where would you categorize it? A is most severe, B, and then D being least severe. And that's what I'm kind of interested in. What the FAA kind of deems this scenario. Was it it was probably an alpha incursion because it wasn't far from potentially being an accident. But
Well, it's interesting that you said that it was a point one of a mile because
Yeah.
the article that I read today from the LA Times said that it was 1,400 and like 33 feet lateral separation,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like 524 or whatever some change
Mm-hmm.
of vertical separation. So that's closer to a quarter mile step,
Yeah.
um, as opposed to like a point one.
Yeah.
So I think it's not great, but it's not terrible. Not to coin a phrase.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here was another one too. There was a few videos out there where the I think the call sign was knife something, but
Yeah.
he was talking to SoCal, so SoCal knew that he was there, and
Mhm.
then as well as United was given an advisory that he was there.
Yeah.
So initially, when the news report came out, it was almost like making it sound like the Army helicopter wasn't talking to anybody.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
was just flying around the airport.
They love the
Which
dramatics.
I think now that since the DCA thing happened, they're
Mhm.
just anything that has to do with helicopters, they're
Yeah.
gonna go crazy about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They're looking for something to talk about, right? Um,
yeah,
what do you guys think of this chart here from the PHAC?
Oh, okay.
You know, a very serious incident with a condition narrowly avoided, separation decrease, and therefore significant potential for collision may have resulted, requiring an evasive response to avoid a collision. That didn't happen, right? There was no evasive response. Um, and I think it's probably in this C category, an incident characterized by ample time
Mhm.
and or distance to avoid a collision. And that's
yeah,
Yeah.
probably where this fell in. And my question would be, if it wasn't a Blackhawk, would it have been made the news
Yeah.
because of the
yeah,
recent incident? And how many category C's happen that go unnoticed or undiscussed, especially in
Right.
uncontrolled airspace?
Mhm.
And you know, when we're like, when you're flying in that area, I was just there, so I know. I mean, you could theoretically, I mean, we're flying 400 feet above a Southwest airplane at all times, you know, almost,
yeah.
right? So obviously it's controlled and it's expected, but like, yeah, this was a little unexpected and shocking, which is why it probably made news. But
So
I wonder. Go ahead.
so here's something else that I just remembered from this. Um, so John Wayne is a Class Charlie airport.
Yes.
You need a clearance to depart VFR from a Class Charlie. So if that aircraft was departing, they were given that clearance to depart.
Right.
So. eh,
That's a good point.
So either they didn't get a proper clearance or there was a miscommunication somewhere in that clearance. That's
Right.
yeah, I don't think that was any mentioned in any of the articles that I was reading there, and I think that nuance was kind of lost with this, that it wasn't the Blackhawk that was just taking off and doing
Right.
whatever the hell it wanted to,
Right.
that they had to have a clearance to depart.
Yeah, they weren't
Mm.
on an airway, a flight
No.
plan or a flight path, right?
Yeah.
They were they were directed by tower
Hmm.
where to go and when.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then the
Man, and this is something that like and maybe this is why they're bringing it up again, but now that we have more information that came out about the DC crash, the predominance of evidence points to multiple failures
Hmm.
in the system there, and really it was a procedural control failure, and this leads to some good advice that I've been given a couple times in my military career as an aviator, but never accept a clearance you don't understand
Hmm.
or a bad clearance because the responsibility for accepting that clearance is going to fall on you,
Hmm.
whether or not it was given to you legally by ATC, which may have been the case in this, and was definitely the case in the DC crash. Unfortunately, it's tragic that all the holes in the Swiss cheese lined up for that incident. And this may be why the news is making a thing out of it. Again, like
Mm-hmm.
you guys said, it was a military aircraft, but again,
Mm-hmm.
they accepted that clearance and they enacted on it. So whether or not it's legal, use your best judgment as a pilot in command.
I can
Mhm.
see how that would easily, you could get complacent and a bit of that expectation bias too. You've done that route 100 times.
Yeah.
You drift up a little too far. That's easy to do. We all know that. You think you're at 500. You look over at an instrument. And you talk about something else. You look back. You're at 600. You know, that shit
Mhm.
happens.
And it gets me that the margin of error in DC was so thin that that 100 foot made the difference that day in
Right.
the worst way
Right.
possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was listening to the guys on opposing bases talking about this, and they were saying that controllers will talk about these clearances and these approaches, and they'd bring them up, and this one had most certainly likely been discussed by a controller who wasn't comfortable with it, but they just do it so regularly, they're in the habit of it, and no
Yeah.
one would really listen because it takes effort and takes time and work to change these things, but at
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
that point on, or from that incident on, I think the community, the controller community, from what they're implying, is um, that they're encouraged to speak up on these type of departures or clearances that are concerning. They may have done them a bunch of times in the past. If they raise red flags or they don't like it or it makes them feel uncomfortable, they're encouraged to talk about it. So that's encouraging at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and as Jay said, they both aircraft were talking to
Right.
tower. They were in communication of everyone. So at the end of the day, like, yeah, was it close? Yeah, they were within a quarter mile of each other, separated by 500 feet. But it was still legal clearance that they were given.
Right.
They I I would have to know more about the incident, and of course, the investigation is still ongoing. So this is speculation, but it doesn't sound like they made a incursion. That they accepted their
Right.
clearance and departed with a legal clearance.
Right.
Yeah. That's true.
According to the definition
And
of incursion.
Mhm.
yeah. Another thing too, guys, remember these controllers, they're people too, and they make
Right.
mistakes. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
obviously, case in point that CRJ, I think anybody that I thought about it, from a pilot standpoint and from I was for firefighter for many years, and knowing that ARF truck, he could have called it 1,000 times. Those things are loud. As soon as he gave that clearance, those people were punching it crossing that runway, and they couldn't hear that cancel. Stop, stop,
Mm-hmm.
stop. It's loud. That those Oscars, they're super loud. So it's heartbreaking to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
It is. That one was, yeah, that one's tough.
yeah,
Yeah. It's the nature of our business, right?
it's
Yeah.
true.
We've learned from this stuff.
I was telling my one buddy last week, just some of the close calls that I've had in this line of work, and
Yeah.
well, it certainly makes you more neurotic. Um, that a small mistake could be a small mistake, and that you might not even have to call anyone about it. It might just be something that you think about years after the fact of how close that could have been, um, or the difference of a landing light versus a an IR searchlight. In the one case that I'm thinking of, um, was this close to costing 30 people their lives.
Damn.
So it's yeah, it's hard to determine like what's going to make the difference at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Having your radio 5 clicks turned up versus 6, so that way you hear the stop clearance, or like
Mm-hmm.
hold, especially wants you to put into mission planning.
Mm-hmm.
it comes back to a lot of that small decisions can um, lead to big consequences in anything that we do. Again, both civilian and for military pilots.
Uh,
Um, yeah, we got to bring our best every day. Unfortunately,
I'm always so impressed with pilots and ADM and just what how everybody just works so well in this space. And I've got this uh what's the phrase that people say where they're like imposter syndrome or whatever. I know I'm in there. I'm doing it, but I don't really. I think everyone else is like killing it, and I'm just like this. I'm like this little bug that's just avoiding everything. Like I don't.
yeah,
It's like, but I'm part of it too. And you gotta. It requires a certain amount of confidence and um, just balls really to do this stuff. And
yeah,
I think we all are looking for those opportunities to like excel in this space. It's pretty.
hmm
It takes a special breed for sure.
oh yeah. I my wife likes to tell me that us as helicopter pilots we're crazy for doing what we do, but it takes a special kind of crazy to marry into it.
there you go.
Yeah, good for
Yeah,
her. Yes, she's absolutely right.
yeah,
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 that's true. There's something she likes about that though.
yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah.
doesn't want your average guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And man, none of us that are in this profession are average when you think of that.
Yeah. Extraordinary human figures. My buddy had a tagging group called EHF. Extraordinary human figure. It's pretty funny. Well, dudes, anything else?
I don't think
No, this has been a great
good
session
ending
this
point.
evening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great session.
absolutely.
I've got it recorded. It's a little jumpy because of the QuickTime was jumping in and out, but that
Mhm.
glideai.io, huge,
Yeah, good one
Yeah,
to
I'll
you.
have to check that out.
super
That
good.
looks excellent.
Also comes with a warning though, because you can
Mm,
ask something, and
Yeah,
if your wording is not right, you can still get
yeah,
a definite no for an answer. But if you dig deeper and you're like, hey, but what about R1? Or like, it's
yes,
still AI.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
but at
and
least you can
that's where
still get an
the
answer.
references are huge for all of that because then you can dig into it yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think we and Mike and I were talking about that too. Always like validate what you're reading, especially when in these with these tools. You
Mhm.
can't just blindly trust it.
yeah. Trust but verify.
Right. Well
Absolutely.
said, Jay. Well,
Yeah.
you dudes are awesome. Have a good night.
All right,
I'll
yeah.
set up another group for sometime next week, probably a Thursday. And if you guys have any suggestions on topics, throw them my way. If not, I'll just kind of come up with something and
Yeah,
see you guys then.
sounds good. Good hanging with you, gentlemen. Good
Likewise.
talking.
Take
Have a
care.
good night, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Till next time.